Okay, so hello and welcome back. So, we're going to be taking a look today at the terrifying true scale of nuclear weapons, okay, and by real life lore. It's quite an old video, but I think I should add some stuff to it. It's also a viewer requested video that I've been putting off for a long time. So, I'm finally getting around to it. So, without further ado, let us plunge into nuclear fire.
Ever since the first nuclear weapons test in the deserts of New Mexico and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, nuclear weapons have become significantly more powerful. Since the first test in New Mexico by the United States in 1945, 2,475 nuclear weapons have been detonated across the globe. Over 85% of those detonations have come from only two countries, however, the United States and the former Soviet Union.
Just take into account we most of us have been lucky enough to live through uh, a world that's not having nuclear tests going on. Now, if you go back past the 60s, I believe, 70s, nuclear weapons were still being detonated like they were going out of style. Then we detonated a few too many and almost disrupted the electromagnetic sphere around the Earth and almost made it disappear. So we were like, oh, maybe we should stop doing that. So yeah, we've detonated a massive amount of nuclear weapons that most people probably don't know that we have done. It's just that we've done them in remote locations, quote unquote.
Only two of those thousands of detonations were ever used in a war, the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II by the United States.
Take a look. That is a horrifying photograph and also mesmerizing at the same time. Before Hiroshima, you can see that those are clearly buildings, and then after Hiroshima, literally everything is vaporized. Everything is gone. And again, these were not anywhere near the nuclear bombs that we have today, let alone the ones we developed even a few years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
But those bombs were very small compared to modern weaponry. The Hiroshima bomb produced an explosion of 15 kilotons, or 15,000 tons worth of TNT. The bomb dropped on Nagasaki had an explosion of 21 kilotons, but how much bigger can nuclear weapons possibly get? The answer is, terrifyingly, much, much bigger. The largest nuclear weapon currently in the United States arsenal is the B-83, which can produce a blast of 1.2 megatons. To understand the scale from here out, 1 megaton is equal to 1 million tons of TNT, and that is equal to 1,000 kilotons.
Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm not a very good person with numbers, so But just remember that the B-83 is technically the nuclear bomb that we have as the United States that we can equip to the B-52 and the B-2 Spirit aircraft and go bomb targets. However, that is very unlikely for us to do, mostly because we have the Minutemen, which are nuclear missiles containing nuclear warheads that can put warheads on foreheads anywhere in the world. So you kind of don't need to send a bomber to go do that mission, but I'll elaborate on that further later in the video.
Remember that the Hiroshima blast was just 15 kilotons, so that means that the B-83 produces a blast 80 times more powerful than that. What I've been showing on this scale is only the size of the mushroom cloud that the bombs produced, so to further add to the scale, we're going to place the size of Mount Everest here and the average altitude of a commercial airliner that you would normally fly on here. So, the Castle Bravo bomb is the largest nuclear weapon ever tested by the United States. It produced a blast of 15 megatons, or about 1,000 times the scale of Hiroshima. But even that pales in comparison to the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated.
We'll get back to that in a minute here. So let's talk about Castle Bravo for a minute, okay? So Castle Bravo was, excuse my language here, if you have children, a colossal fuck up. There's no other way to put that. So the United States wanted to see how big a nuclear bomb could possibly get. Why not? It's basically the thought. Why not detonate, a nuclear bomb? We already know it can't, ignite the Earth's atmosphere. So what possibly could go wrong? So again, we detonate this in an atoll that's inhabited, by the way. So an atoll is inhabited by people, but they're even, they're even tanner than me. So the United States, remember, at this time, this is way before we even have, civil rights reform. So this is not exactly a time for the United States to consider people's skin color. So putting it very mildly, they didn't care really that these islands were inhabited, and they didn't think the blast wave would actually get out that far or the fallout would affect them. Okay, so leaving that aside, I'll leave a link to Kyle's video. You can actually go check out. It's a pretty good video on what exactly went wrong with the Castle Bravo bomb. Basically, more than half of the fuel in the bomb was supposed to be inert and not go off, but it did. And I'm not a nuclear guy, so excuse that. But it did, resulting in this massive bomb going off that they didn't think would actually be this big. It was supposed to be not even half. So it's supposed to be like 6 megatons. Okay, it's not even supposed to be like 15. But that happened. And then, an unfortunate incident, there used to be a Lucky Dragon 5 sailing boat used to go out there and was picking up fish at the time, and the fallout, the wind in the Pacific, pushed the fallout to them. And let's just say all those people got cancer, and I think most of them died. You're going to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but let's just say this was not a very good idea to detonate a bomb this big. But don't worry, the USSR will topple us.
Largest nuclear weapon ever detonated. In October 1961, the Soviet Union created the largest man-made explosion ever in human history when they detonated this device, known as the Tsar Bomba, here over this territory known as Novaya Zemlya. The bomb detonated with an astounding force of 50 megatons, or about 3,333 Hiroshima blasts. It was so powerful that it almost destroyed the plane that dropped it, shattered windows as far away as Norway and Finland, and the shock waves created by the bomb circled around the entire Earth 3 times. But this test was actually just a scaled-down version of what was theoretically possible. Although never tested, the Soviets did have plans to create a bomb that would be twice as powerful as even the Tsar Bomba.
Think about that. There was theoretically a device that they could put in the Tsar Bomba that make it twice the explosion, okay? Yeah, they actually scaled down how big this bomb could be. Again, 50 megatons. That's a scaled down version because they were like, well, we could make a bomb bigger, but let's just test the smaller one. Look at that. Look at how that mushroom cloud is going into the dang stratosphere, okay? Now, a little interesting, because I actually did a high school project on this bomb for some reason, but I did. This specific bomb, they didn't know if the pilots would make it out. They didn't know if the aircraft would make it out. So they did a whole bunch of things to slow the bomb's descent to the Earth, okay? Because it has to not detonate in the ground, but, airburst, to not cause as much damage and fallout. So they attached parachutes. They gave the bomb basically fins to even slow it down even further. And they're just like, hey, pilots, we don't know if you're going to make it out of there. Because, again, they drop it from an altitude. It takes a long time as long as hopefully as the pilots need, right, to get all the way to the ground. So the pilots to fly. And remember, they're flying a prop plane. It's the Bear, I think Tu-84, Tu-85 Bear. You can leave the comment there. But it's called the Bear aircraft. The Soviets still have it, Russia still has it and still operates it to basically probe everyone at this point. But it exists and it's a prop plane, and it doesn't go very fast. And if you have a nuclear bomb that's 50 megatons, it's probably not a very good idea to be in an aircraft, near it. It'll just shake the aircraft or make it throw out of the sky. They had no idea what would actually happen to the aircraft. So those guys are very lucky that they're able to come out of that. Okay, so that's just putting it into perspective. That the theoretical Tsar Bomba probably meant that the aircraft wouldn't be coming back. And the whole reason they still used bombs instead of nuclear, missiles was because before the technology, the U.S. actually leapfrogged the Soviets in missile technology for ICBMs, so nuclear bombs, basically, or nuclear missiles that drop a warhead that makes big explosion. Let's put it that way. But the Russians didn't have that, or they didn't have enough for them to be precise enough to hit New York City. They would hit somewhere in New York-ish around that target. So the bombs were more accurate. So they would just fly the aircraft over, drop the bomb, baba-da-boopy. Problem solved. Just do that. The U.S. had the same things. We were running B-53s or B-52s in the 50s and the 60s, I believe, nonstop, just in case we needed to go bomb the Soviet Union. So that's why bombs were used at first. And that's why we don't usually use them now, because we have big missiles that do this for us.
Would be twice as powerful as even the Tsar Bomba, a bomb so powerful that it would have produced a mind-boggling 100 megaton blast, or about 6,666 Hiroshima blasts altogether. To get another sense of scale, let's imagine that Times Square in New York City would be the epicenter of these blasts. You can test this stuff out yourself on the website NukeMap after watching this video. I'll provide a link for it after the end, but let's see the results first. First off, we're going to show the size of this detonation, which was caused by the recent North Korean test in 2013. Following this, here is the size of the Hiroshima detonation, which isn't really that much bigger, but let's move on to the B-83 bomb that we were talking about. As you can see, it would affect a much larger area than the Hiroshima bomb, but moving on past that to the Castle Bravo test, we can see how it truly dwarfs everything before it. But even that blast is incredibly tiny when we move on towards the Tsar Bomba as seen here. And then finally for our scale, we move on to how large the blast from the theoretical 100 megaton version of the Tsar Bomba would be.
I just wanted to put you into effect that New York City is like the most populated area in the United States that we have, besides like California. Yeah, that all of them are just gone. I mean, basically all of New York State basically almost lives in New York City, okay? And New York City just doesn't exist anymore. Not just New York City, it's basically the whole area around it, too. It's completely vaporized. I think it's like 30-something million people today gone, let alone, it's mind-boggling how big these bombs could possibly get.
The blast would be so powerful. This is what the blast radius would look like if you were observing it from the International Space Station. So the question then becomes, should any of this really worry you? How many nuclear weapons exist today anyway? Well, in total, there are estimated to be around 15,600 nuclear weapons in the world currently, enough to destroy the entire planet dozens of times over. But only 9 countries control that stockpile, and 92% of those weapons are controlled by only the United States and Russia. The other 8% of the global nuclear arsenal is controlled in descending order of numbers by France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. Israel is, however, high.
So let's before we get to Israel, let's just talk about this, okay? Again, this video was made years ago, so we still are decommissioning nuclear weapons because we don't need this many nuclear bombs, okay? It's not just nuclear bombs. We had a nuclear football, by the way, literally a backpack that contained a nuclear bomb because, you know, why not? We also have nuclear artillery shells because, of course we do. Because, you know, it was theorized during the Cold War that, you know, tactical nukes would be necessary. So tactical nukes basically wipe out whole divisions or brigades completely off the map. That's what tactical nukes are basically for, to be used tactically so that, you know, they wouldn't use a nuclear missile to destroy a city. No. We would just tactically destroy a whole brigade, and that totally won't lead to everyone using them like willy-nilly. But that's the idea, was tactical nukes would be thrown out, literally, was the idea in the very early stages of the Cold War. So yeah, that would have been fun. And, you know, having this many, so let's just break down a missile. Like a nuclear missile in the United States, like the Minuteman III, I believe, has different warheads in it. So let's just say, for example, it has 8 warheads. I don't know how many are in there, but, you know, 8 warheads. Each one of those is basically a nuclear bomb. So think a little Nagasaki in each one of those, okay? Now, a nuclear missile will go up and go into the target and then will break off. And then 8 of these little warheads will go hit their targets. They can hit Moscow. They can hit, like, Archangel, okay? They can hit Stalingrad, I think. St. Petersburg, okay? So they get those 3, just 3 of those could hit all those. Now, probably not a very good reason for us to continuously have all these missiles and bombs and footballs and artillery shells, because it's hard to monitor all of them, and you would be surprised at how many times people have lost nuclear bombs. Yes, this is a thing, and accidentally put nuclear payloads on aircrafts, okay? You would be astounded how many times that happens. We really shouldn't have that many. I mean, you know, I'm all in favor of, you know, nuclear deterrence and stuff, right? But we have ICBMs. I don't think we need 7,000 nuclear bombs, okay? Or devices. Let's just say devices of some kind. Probably, maybe need less than 1,000. Just saying.
And North Korea. Israel is, however, highly secretive about its nuclear program and has never publicly confirmed nor denied the existence of their nukes. It's just one of those things where everybody knows that they have them, but nobody really comes out and says so. Unless your name happens to be Mordecai Vanunu, a man who did reveal details about Israel's nuclear program and spent 18 years in prison, including over 11 years in solitary confinement. Also interesting to note, South Africa used to be in possession of 6 nuclear weapons because the past apartheid regime was afraid of the 79% of the population that couldn't vote and communists trying to overthrow their government.
And they're also where I believe the United States mined out the uranium it needed for the nuclear bombs in World War II. It has a deposit of uranium there that was readily accessible. Okay, so also Israel is one of those countries that we know has nuclear weapons, but they don't say they do, but they do. And the real reason is if they get attacked again, they can be like, "Oh, we could press the button." It's a deterrence, let's put it that way. And South Africa did because obviously they did. And yes, they were afraid of their own population. I don't know if they nuked their own country, but and then the communists, they were definitely afraid of communists invading them in Africa. But
But they eventually agreed to dismantle all of them, which makes South Africa the only country to ever acquire nuclear weapons and then voluntarily get rid of them. Well, unless you don't count Ukraine, Belarus, or Kazakhstan, which all had nuclear weapons for a brief amount of time after they declared their independence from the Soviet Union in 1991.
and I believe the Ukrainians had like the fifth largest army at the time in '91 because all of the Soviet troops that were in Ukraine and the Ukrainian army in the Soviet Socialist Republic. Semantics there, okay? They were a republic in there, but let's just say they had all the nuclear weapons, because that's where the bases were. They had the nuclear reactors over Chernobyl and stuff are actually in Ukraine, right? Then they have all of the Soviet hardware, and these guys have nowhere to go because Russia's basically collapsing, and they have no jobs. So they're like, well, I guess we'll just stay here. So that was a thing. That also happened in Estonia. You can check out Arthur Ray. He had a video on it a long time ago, I believe.
Ukraine is particularly awkward because after their independence, they found themselves in possession of over 5,000 nuclear weapons, which would make Ukraine for a brief period the world's third largest nuclear power and probably one of the most powerful countries on Earth as a result. They agreed to hand them all over to Russia in exchange for a super serious promise that nobody would violate their territory or borders in the future, and we all know how that turned out. As a result of that happening, it's
Yeah. This video was made 6 years ago. Even then, the Crimea happened, let alone the Russian Ukrainian war that's going on right now. Yeah, you could see how nuclear disarmament for Ukraine might not have been amazing idea, but I mean, they didn't have the infrastructure to hold them anyway. They weren't really in no position to hold 5,000 nuclear weapons. Let's put it that way.
It's doubtful that other countries would be thrilled to ever give up their nuclear weapons in the future, but leave your thoughts and comments below about how you feel one way or the other. I'd also like if you posted any questions that you have to ask about me personally. My channel recently surpassed 100,000 subscribers, and I'll be doing a short Q&A video about myself very shortly.
So yeah, again, this video was made 6 years ago, before he got like 6 million subscribers. So I'll leave a link for his video down there, and tell me what you guys think. And also, I probably shouldn't have 7,000 nuclear weapons, but hey, hope you guys liked whatever this video was for you. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. So we'll have another video tomorrow. Okay, bye bye.